What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Ableton Music Producer Podcast. This is Dan Giffen. Today, we've got a cool episode with Noer Savoie. He produces as Noer The Boy. It's a fun little rhyme. Noer The Boy is an experimental bass producer. He's had a lot of experience doing all kinds of sound design and composition. He also makes some really interesting visual art. He's a member of DJ Shadow's imprint Liquid Amber, part of a Los Angeles collective called Courteous Family and Noise's Division. He's also released music on labels like Mass Appeal, Vision, Alpha Pup, Orange Milk Records. He also worked with DJ Shadow to co-produce Horror Show featuring Danny Brown, has toured all over the country and internationally. He's also grabbed the attention of well-known bass producers like G Jones, EPROM, Machine Drum, Ivy Lab, and has performed at the iconic Low End Theory nightclub in LA. I really enjoyed our conversation. We talked about his touring stories, we talked about why producers don't need a million plugins. He shares some of his sound design hacks in Ableton Live. He talks about some of his experiences playing really interesting underground shows, how learning synthesis has evolved his style and approach to producing, some of his favorite plugins. We talk about using visual art to enhance your live shows. We talk about the power of working with other creatives, having a solid team, and some other interesting stories. Before we jump into the episode, wanted to remind you, if you want to hang out on Discord, I would love to have you in there. It's been growing and been meeting some really interesting people in there. So if you want to meet me, hang out with some other producers, ask questions, learn some new tips and tricks in Ableton Live, join the Discord. You can go to liveproducersonline.com/Discord. Also, wherever you're listening to the podcast, it would do me a huge favor if you would just hit that follow button or leave a good review. If you don't hate the podcast, leave a review. I'd appreciate that. And episodes are released every Tuesday, so check back then. If you want to be the first to get new episodes, join the newsletter. I'll send you cool stuff. Go to liveproducersonline.com/newsletter. Hope all of you are doing well out there, making bangers, making good tracks. Thanks again for listening. And without wasting any more time, let's jump into this conversation with Noer The Boy. So where are you at right now? You're in Portland, right?
Yep. I live in Portland, Oregon, going on 6 years here. So it's,
Cool.
I guess, long enough to be like, I'm in Portland. I'm from Portland.
Yeah, you're nesting at this point. 6 years is a good amount of time. How is the electronic music scene in Portland?
It's interesting because, I feel like people always compare it to like Los Angeles or New York or the other kind of like big cities as far as, and it's much more of this, I don't know, homey kind of feel where it's like, there's not a ton of people. If you're like at a show, you might see another person that you're like, oh, you're so-and-so, because like, it's not like a super, huge town. That being said, there's like, a bunch of incredible musicians that live out here, especially within like my kind of realm, like, like EPROM, G Jones, live out here, East Ghost,
Nice.
Just a bunch of friends out here. And I feel like we all kind of draw on that like darker kind of like vibe, more so than some of the other cities. So that's kind of why I like Portland. And plus it has a deep history of modular synthesis. Like there's like several companies that are based here. I've been a part of some, programs where it's like, I can rent, modular gear and stuff to use and like go in. As far as that's concerned, it's been just a really awesome city to be in. Cause like, I know that's not, that's not everywhere.
Yeah, no. Have you ever watched the documentary I Dream of Wires?
Yes. Oh, I haven't seen that song. It's
That's
so
old.
good. And
Buchla was really popular, I think, on the West Coast in Portland too. You're mentioning modular.
Mm-hmm.
I
it's
think
that West Coast synthesis. Yeah.
It is. Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, I don't know. As far as, I'm concerned, some of that stuff I feel like goes over my head where it's like, I felt like I spent a number of years trying to like really get into hardware synthesis where I was like, okay, we got all these modules. I have, countless friends who have like crazy racks and they're always like, you should get this module or you should try this. And I went through, I feel like this period, I feel like everyone has to do it, where you kind of go through and you're like, wait, like, what exactly am I going for? What's my kind of like motive? And I kind of realized that for me, it's just the sound is important. It's just, if I'm making dope sound, that's what's important. So I'm a big VST fan, but now it's funny. I've actually come full circle And it's funny that you were mentioning, you're in this temporary setups, you're getting all like the wiring and stuff set up, because I'm getting back into modular hardware synthesis now, but like with the emphasis of running it like in conjunction with like VCD rack. I don't know if you're familiar.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Tools, stuff like that. Cause I'm like, I love all of the modulation, but I love, analog processing is great. So now it's like, that's my task coming up of like, I got to get everything to communicate, and sometimes a losing battle, but
yeah,
what can you do but keep going?
Yeah, I mean, there's the convenience factor, right? Like if you ever want to take your computer, like if you have a laptop to a coffee shop, it's going to be kind of hard to carry like, a Moog with you to like sit on the table next to you.
Well, exactly. And I'm going to be real. I've always, I'll use some analog gear, like if I'm at like a friend's house or something or whatever. But, most of my sounds are like, I feel like 95% just like in the box. And people will be like, oh, I love your analog synths here, or your processing. And I have to tell them like, yo, that was just like a free reactor, like plugin that like Native Instruments Reactor plugin that I'm using. So like, I don't know. Yeah. Convenience is definitely a thing, but dope sound.
I don't know if you ever listened to the Mr. Bill podcast. He was on the podcast a while ago. Nice guy, but he was talking about how he literally just like sold pretty much all of his modular stuff.
Really?
And and a lot of his stuff just because he's like, I don't really feel like I need it. And it forces me to like just kind of be quicker when I'm in the box. And I think he probably just sampled a lot of really great sounds out of it and just turned it into an Ableton instrument rack. And he's like, I don't need to run back and forth, and I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that it's like a common theme with a lot of like producers is I feel like they're like, okay, I had this big setup and now, maybe I've mined all the sounds that I want, or, you just realize you're productive. Just like, when I pull up Ableton, like for example, I got my nice production computer right here with like all of my plugins, and, it's got a ton of RAM and it's great. But I tell you, I just started one of my favorite songs in recent memory on like my crappy Asus PC laptop with like 3 plugins, where it's like, I'm just like, so I don't know.
I mean, like I feel like I made some decent stuff on my like really shitty Toshiba laptop that I had in college like 10 years ago. And like my computer was sweating and like the fan was about to blow up, and like I was still just like, yeah, this shit's good. Like, and I was still making decent music on it, just all stock stuff. So you don't need fancy plugins, if you don't want to. It's nice to have,
Oh, absolutely. As much as I say that, I other people, it's like, I don't know, maybe they buy collectibles or they get, cars. Right. And for me, it's like VSTs are nice and cheap. Even if I don't use one, it's like, if it's like $25-$30, it's like, let's give it a shot. And so
yeah, I do. And I hear people who are like, I don't want to pay, $300 for a VST. I was like, some guy was in his basement for probably a year and a half coding that thing. Think about how many hours people put into making those products.
Oh, I know. Cause well, I always think like think of yourself, you spend all these hours making a song, blood, sweat, and tears. And then it's like, is someone going to pay $1 for it on Bandcamp? Are they going to stream it 1 million times on Spotify? Like, I don't know. So trying to, pay people for their work is like super important, where it's like, without those VSTs, like, I don't know where I'd be, so
VST success story. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, man, how did you get into producing? Like maybe share a little bit of your background for people who don't know much about you. You're a great sound designer. Like I've been following you for a little bit, and I love your tracks. You make some really dope sounds. But how did you get started in the music thing?
Yeah, so I grew up like a half hour south of Green Bay, Wisconsin. So I was kind of in like the middle of nowhere. So I know you're from Indianapolis, right? Is that where you're?
Well, I grew up in
Ohio for a while.
I grew up in Ohio, but I lived outside of Green Bay in Appleton for a while. So
I'm from Appleton, so that was my hometown.
My family's there. Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Dope.
Small world. That's crazy. So so you get an idea, that kind of area. So it's like a small city. It's, there's not, as far as shows going, it's like, I'd have to go to like Milwaukee or Madison or Chicago or something, somewhere kind of like outside. So I kind of, grew up in this bubble where I was always into music. Like, my family, my parents like aren't like musicians per se, but they always like, they knew that it was like, I loved, like, I remember I had like it was like a recording tape cassette when I was a kid, and I would just like record like just dumb loops and songs, really rudimentary and stuff. And then, that evolved into like, I remember getting Magic's Music Maker 10 Deluxe from Circuit City in like 2005. That was like, I was like 12. And from then it was like, I realized like, oh, this is the good stuff. Like I'm addicted to this and stuff. And, fast forward, I was in a lot of choirs growing up. I played French horn for 12 years. So I have this kind of classical music background. I'm not great by any means. I always just didn't practice enough. That was kind of the thing. I wouldn't practice, and then I would get like anxiety when I'd perform. And like that was kind of the thing for a while. But electronic music was kind of like, breaking out of that. So fast forward to like college, and I was going to school for like video editing, which I still do. Like I love editing. I just realized I love editing. I love, manipulating footage or sound. But I joined this DJ club when I was in college at UW Oshkosh. And it just, opened up this world where like my only experience with electronic music up to that point was I would go to the public library, and you could get like up to 25 CDs at a time checking out. And so I would just like rifle through all the electronic music. And it was, of course, all that like, I don't know, what people might consider a little more cheesy, like, electronic music now, or that kind of like late 90s, early 2000s. But I mean, that was like crazy. And I remember, discovering like it was like DJ Shadow and like Mr. Wazo, which are like two of my hugest influences. And now it's like I'm friends with DJ Shadow. So it's crazy that like we've come like all this way. But like, so I would like listen to all that music, and like, at that point it was like dial-up internet. So I would like take forever to just like stream one song to play. But it was like, I was hearing that kind of stuff. And so I was always, like, other people grow up in, scenes where they're always going to shows. It was like, I just had these disparate like CDs or like a couple kind of links. So it was like, I just had these very different kind of, like musical influences come in. So then fast forward, when I get to college, I got Ableton. One of my longtime good friends was like, he was like a master in Ableton at that point for like 10 years and stuff. So I would just hang out with him, and it was like, 3 hours, 4 hours every single day. He would just show me Ableton and stuff to do. So it was like, I had that like crash course for like, I feel like a solid like 3 years in college, where it was just Ableton every, waking moment other than, school and stuff. And then that kind of got to my senior year, when it was like I could graduate and I could like, work for a news company or something, or
the 9 to 5.
The 9 to 5, which, I'm not hating, I have plenty of friends who are successful doing that. But I knew that like wasn't for me. It wasn't, fulfilling at all. So it was like, okay, I do that, or I try to make this music thing happen. And I was thankful I had scholarships in college. Like I wasn't in debt. So it was like, I kind of had this blank slate. So at that point, I was kind of looking at like Los Angeles, because I'm like, that's where all the music stuff's like happening and stuff. But my one of my longtime friends, Bleep Loop, he was, at the time he was living here in Portland, Oregon. He was just like, yo, have you thought about Portland? Like, Los Angeles is expensive, but like, this is like on the coast, and it's by a great airport and stuff. And I was just like, all right. And I was playing a show here, and I went and I kicked it with him one day, got insanely stoned recording modular sounds. And at that point I was like, yeah, Portland's cool. So then I just, after school, I moved, and, I'm skipping over, I guess, a lot of, the musical journey, but it's like, so much of it has always been like, I've felt kind of like a musical outsider in sorts, every kind of step of the way, not like in a bad way, just like I always had like different interests that, maybe people weren't into or whatever. And so that's where Portland felt like a really nice home, because it's a lot of these kind of on the fringes of like bass music. Because I feel like, you got Los Angeles, you got San Francisco, you got like the East Coast. And that's like Portland's like this weird enclave of like all of the kind of misfits that are just, I don't know, into that kind of like more darker, I don't know, kind of stuff. So,
well, it's probably easier to get plugged into a community that's, starting to like boom with some like big names, but it's not like LA or New York, establishing yourself in a market like that maybe makes sense. And if the weed is really good, that always helps. So
yeah. We're coming to a point now where I'm like, all right, maybe it's time to chill on that, just a little bit. But no, it's just I think you really raise a good point where it's like, you go into one of those big cities and it's like, what? Oh, you're another DJ. you're
Yeah.
another producer. Like
Yeah.
how many DJs and producers are, but that being said, there are, I feel like, more and more people moving to Portland. So it's kind of becoming
True.
that, but it's,
Yeah.
it's nice to, be in an area where it's like, these other people I can just, reach out to, and I see them when I'm out, and it's,
Yeah.
it has this
A
smaller kind of
community.
homey feel. Absolutely.
Yeah, man, I'm all about the community. Other than that, you mentioned like DJ Shadow. You were on or a part of his label Liquid Amber. I heard about that.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Because he's no small fish. How did you guys end up linking up?
Yeah, so that was, one of those crazy, like, I feel like, behind any artist with any amount of success, there's that luck factor of just like something happened that was good. And
Yeah.
for that, it was, so I was, I was in college. I was just making beats, putting beats on SoundCloud. It was like the golden age of SoundCloud, when like stuff was really popping there. And I had put out some music. I remember I in particular, there was this one track I dropped, and it was like, I was actually playing a show with, was it like a show with Dub Loads or something? Really long time ago when I was in college. And I had like the night before, it was like the only time I passed out from drinking and like passed out in my vomit and stuff. So it was like a disgusting morning that I woke up. But I woke up and I started seeing like all these notifications, and it was Jemba had like reposted one of my tracks, and it was getting like, it got like 20,000 plays in a day or whatever, like it was just like all coming in. And from that point on, it was like all of these people that's like I was just listening to as a fan, would start kind of reaching out. And two of those people that really kind of started hearing me early was Bleep Bloop and G Jones
Dope.
at the time. And so they heard me, and at that time they had basically hooked up with DJ Shadow, because he got really into like Saturate Records in like the mid 2010s or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kind of linked up, and I guess they were having like a listening session one day. It must have been in like, I don't know, early 2015 or something. And DJ Shadow was just like, yo, what's like the dope music going on? And they both were like, have you checked out Noer The Boy? And at this point I was like totally oblivious to us. I'm in Wisconsin, just like, I'm just doing it because I love it, because I love music. That's at the end of the day what I'm doing. And so then he heard my stuff, and he reached out, and from there just started like a great relationship where like I still talk to him this day. And he signed me to his label. I wish he did more with his label. It's one of those things I understand though, because it's like people ask me if I want to start a label. I'm like, that's a lot of work. Like
it's a lot of work,
it's
man.
tough. So I totally understand it, and I respect the hustle. But he just thought I had like a fresh perspective that we kind of, he's obviously from a different generation. He could like be my dad pretty much. But we just like, we agreed on so many of these like musical concepts and stuff that like, transcend, generations and stuff. So he signed me, and then it was the reason why I kind of moved to Portland and did the music after school was because I was fortunate enough to, have him bring me on his tour. It was his the Mountain Wolf or
the horror. Was it the horror?
Oh, so it was his album before that.
Oh, okay.
I'm totally blanking on the name, but
that's fine.
Great album. But in 2016, and so I played like 16 shows with him across North America, Canada on a bus. So it was like I went from like I was just playing a few shows, a couple festivals, to like I'm on a bus and I'm with DJ Shadow, and like these shows are like popping, and I'm like playing crazy stuff. And from there, then the next year he took me to Europe, and so I played for like a month in Europe with him.
Awesome.
Like even bigger shows, like just it was this window into this into this world that I just thought was like a dream at this point. And so
that's cool.
That was really crazy. And then we worked together. We've collaborated on one track. It was on that horror show, on that The Mountain Will Fall, with Danny Brown, one of my favorite rappers ever. So
he's dope.
We collaborated on that, and then we kind of, the years kind of go by, things happen, and we recently reached out, and I think we're gonna work on some stuff again, because
do it.
He's such a brilliant mind, and has so much experience. That's what I feel like I just gained so much like perspective on like being professional on the road, because like I feel like a lot of people they get that baptism by fire and like maybe a tour, and like they get like just like anything. You want drugs, you want alcohol, you want whatever. But like DJ Shadow, I was actually very thankful that he's like the strictest dad, that like he doesn't smoke weed, he like doesn't drink, he's like completely like straight edge. He doesn't care if you do, but it's like you don't want to then when he's like kind of on that level. You don't want to, so it was like very much like just that like being professional, being in the moment, I thought was just like, such a great benefit to me. Mm-hmm. And I look back on those memories really fondly. It feels like yesterday, but it's also like, damn.
Yeah.
time flies.
DJ Shadow nostalgia.
Yeah. Oh, exactly.
Yeah. That's probably why he's been so successful too, though, being focused and being really strict about, like think about all the time that, he could have spent partying. He was probably just like working on his craft and doing stuff.
Exactly. I mean, that's what we kind of bonded over, was we were both like two kind of shy, kind of quiet people. Like he's just, I'm very anxious. He's kind of very anxious. And we just like obsessively work on music and listen to music and talk about music history and stuff. So like, that's awesome. Yeah. He's the king of the music nerds in the best way possible. Yeah,
so man, I'm all about it. I'm all about it. That's dope. Yeah, well, speaking of playing shows and stuff, you also were involved or played a show at Low End Theory in LA, which was like, for anybody listening doesn't know, that was like a really iconic weekly experimental hip hop and electronic music club. And that went on for like what, 10 to 15 years or something?
Yeah, they had over 500 weekly like events or whatever. Like
yeah,
that was absolutely insane. One of those bucket list, type things where it was like, I was, thankful to catch kind of the tail end of it. I only played twice, but that was like the ultimate show that I don't think will ever be recreated again, where it's like you went in there and it was at the Airliner, which was this tiny, dingy, like, did you ever get to go to it?
No, I've never been. No.
Okay, so it was this tiny, dingy, like 2-level, like a bar basically, with like no green room. It just had like the stages. So it's like there was no place to hide. There was no green room to sit. You were like there. It was like the day that I was there is, you would see, oh, you're so-and-so, you do the visuals for Flying Lotus. And like, oh, that's like, Daddy Kev, the absolute legend. That's like, just like, all these, insane legends and stuff. And, when, let's see, when I was there, it was Noisia was the headliner, who I've got to play with several times since, and, gotten to know.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I played, it was Tice from Noisia's birthday. And I remember it was just the craziest moment. So I'm meeting all of these crazy Los Angeles, producers and stuff. And I'm just like on cloud nine. And then Tice runs up to me with his phone on Snapchat. And he's like, hey, Noah, I want you to meet Sonny. And he had Skrillex on the fucking Snapchat because he was trying, but he's like, plastered trying to get me to introduce me to Skrillex. And I'm just like, hi, Skrillex. You're not going to remember who I am. That's all right. Like this is kind of funny. But that was just like kind of like this crazy pinnacle of like, oh my God, this intersection of, everyone who's like dope. And I'm so thankful I got to experience that.
That's cool. That's really cool. It was like the VIP hangout kind of club, like,
but like the VIP hangout where like, the VIPs would just be standing in like, you would look out and you're just like, wait, what? You're just here. Like and that's something that I would love, to see that pop up somewhere else. I think there are shows that are kind of, bringing that community mindness, back. Like I know like Def on like the East Coast, like that. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
No, I think so.
Yeah, they kind of took like, so Boiler Room always did their classic kind of style of like, the show. But they've never like branched out into like American like bass music really. Like they always kind of like avoid it. So anyways, this crew has been like, we are going to focus on like bass music and doing this. So it's like, they have the little DJ booth in the middle of the room and then this gigantic like kind of warehouse space. And like, it's just, such a cool vibe, but
that's awesome. I mean, the bass music genre just in itself, I feel like has evolved in so many ways. Cause like now when I used to think of bass music, like 5 to 6 years ago, it was like more dubsteppy than it is now. Like now when I think of bass music, I think more of like your genre or like even G Jonesy kind of stuff, or like more like down tempo bassy kind of stuff. There's so many different styles of quote unquote bass music now. But I think it's really cool, man. Like, and you definitely have a sound, like you have your own unique sound. Cause I feel like the bass music genre starts to sound like presets after a while.
But it really does. But for me, I think what kind of got me out of that was just the like learning synthesis. Cause like, so when I was doing all this stuff with Liquid Amber, with Shadow's label and playing like Low End Theory and stuff, I was mostly doing, sample manipulation and like, I would like blaze through presets. Like I would just like, okay, this is crazy. And then I would take that preset and just transform it into something crazy and different, which, my fans never thought I was like being a fraud, but I kind of felt inside like I'm not,
Mhm.
I'm not, working at that core kind of level. And so
Yeah.
in the last several years, the last, like, I don't know, maybe 4 years especially, I've been just really kind of focused on like the building blocks of synthesis. Cause it's like, it's very much just like when I was a kid, I was obsessed with like Legos, but I would like never follow
Me
the
too.
instructions. I would always like get like, I don't know, maybe halfway. And then I'd be like, yeah, I want to kind of do this. I want to combine some of my other pieces. And I would just make these like,
Yeah.
Frankenstein, like, sets. And I realized that synthesis is that exact same thing where it's like, oh, I can just, obviously I can still do sampling and manipulation because that's so important, in the
Yeah.
process. But it's like, getting down onto that level of like, sine wave, triangle wave, saw wave, square wave, we like, those are like what we have. And then we have modulation and we have, and it's like, you know, breaking that down onto that level is like, I think really helped me find my sound, because I think if everyone kind of learns the basics, it's like I can teach you. That's why I've gotten into like, I love just like teaching sound design, because it's like I can
Yeah.
give you the exact same building blocks that I use to make this crazy sound,
Yeah.
and you're going to make something that sounds fundamentally different. Even if it's somewhere in the same kind of realm, it's going to be different because you're into different. You're looking for something. You're searching for something different. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I have found that, like, I don't know, that knowledge is power to be just so important. Where
Oh, it
it's,
totally is, man. And that's the thing is once you understand, in my experience, like the basis of sound design and start to go deeper, it applies to all different plugins and all stock instruments and sounds. Like
mm-hmm.
once you understand the solid basics, like you can use pretty much any software you want. You just
Oh,
once,
exactly.
yeah. And so, yeah, sound design is so important for sure. And like I liked what you said about taking presets and ripping them apart, because that's what I usually do now when I get a new plugin, or like Vital is an example. When the first time I opened it, started playing with it, just started going through presets and reverse engineering it, just being like, how is this made? How can I change it?
Yeah,
But yeah, do you have any favorite synthesizers that you use in the box?
absolutely. I would say over the last like 6 months, I've been almost like all kilohertz phase plant. Like,
Yeah, faceplant's dope. Yeah.
okay, yeah, I just, I had it for maybe, I would say like maybe 6 months, and I kind of would like open it and just like fiddle around, but I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I made that mistake where I just like wasn't taking advantage of it. And I had one of my actual longtime students got really into faceplant. It was just like, yo, Noah, like, you need to, like, trust me, you got to just spend a little time. And
Yeah.
I really then kind of dove in, and, there's been no turning back since then, because, as
Yeah.
far as like building, if you want to build a crazy complex generative bass, you can do that. If you want to make a really beautiful, crazy chordal synth, you could do that. And so I've been just like, utilizing that, the convolver within Faceplant. I don't know if
Okay.
you've messed around with that
I haven't played with it a
effect.
ton. No.
Ooh, so the convolver is just like impulse responses. So like I'm
Oh,
a big fan,
nice.
like, so going on other VSTs. So I'm a huge fan of Isotope Trash. That's like one of
Oh
my
yeah, dude.
go-to.
That's
Like,
it's the
I
OG of saturation, man.
I'll use it
Yeah.
on every sound
Everything.
in a multitude of
Everything.
different ways and stuff. Yeah, but so there's the convolve, function within Trash there, where you
Yep.
can like, you can move it around with like the signal flow graph, and like,
Mhm.
I'm always a big fan of like putting like, convolve before like distortion, because I'm like, let's get crazy spatial stereo stuff, and then let's like crunch that and get to like, crazy results
Yeah.
afterwards. And so what convolver does is it just makes it like a standalone effect, where it's like you can throw in any impulse, and then you can control like, the size of like where you're,
Oh,
what you're
okay.
using of the impulse. You can choose like, you can fade it, you can control, there's like feedback, tone control, so you can make it super bassy or super trebly, or
That's
and
cool.
so that to me has been like just this portal where actually just like, so something that I've just recently got was like spatial microphone that like
What was that?
allows you to get, it's a spatial microphone that allows you to get like binaural like recordings. So like
Oh,
you
okay.
wear it like kind of, it's like by your left and right ear, so it like records how your like head like, listens to sound, which is like much
Oh,
more than just like
yeah.
left and right.
Yeah.
So yeah, just giving people a little heads up on like what I'm like experimenting right for this right now. I'm like, oh, I want to go record a bunch of crazy, like reverberated environments,
Yeah.
strange impacts, just weird sounds, and then
Mhm.
just feed that into my process. And so yeah, Convolver, you got to check it out.
Dope.
It's just so beastly. But let's see, on the topic, VSTs are such a such a
It's a rabbit trail,
happy
dude.
subject. Yeah, such a great rabbit hole.
It is.
I would be remiss without saying yeah, Reactor is my
Okay.
other
Yep.
big engine, just simply because whenever I find myself getting the urge to like buy a new synth or something, I just go on like Native Instruments like Reactor Community Library, and I'll just go by like the most like recent, because they're always adding new
Oh
like
yeah.
weird synths or modules, or you'll find one from like 13 years ago that's like absolutely fire, that you're like, what, like it's got like just a couple hundred downloads and you're like, this is insane. And so I'll go on there, and yeah, so I'll always find like a new, whether it's like sound generation or I like the modular environment within Reactor blocks. I
Yeah.
find that to be a whole lot of fun, which is kind of funny that I was saying I was struggling with the like hardware modular, but then it's like, I love Reactor blocks. I've been loving, VCV rack. Faceplant is just a modular synth. So I realized like, oh, I love modular synth. Just for me, it's like, it's not important necessarily to have like a physical knob. It's just, I need that, like the sound, it sounds good. It is good.
The analog-y kind of tone.
Yeah, because analog, it's like, it's such a, like, obviously there's something to be said about, if you have like a crazy tube amp or like Vactrals, where it's like you're getting those like weird like analog inconsistencies. But like, I also have like there's this Reactor community like hacked VST. I don't know. Are you familiar with the Metasonics like pedals? They're like bright yellow. They have terrible names. Like they're called, like, this one's called the Scrotum Smasher. And there's only like, a couple hundred in existence. They're always like, I think it's actually a Portland company as well. But like, there's like
funny.
these boutique.
I'm looking, there's one called Butt Probe.
Yep. Oh, they're all terrible names with crazy graphics. And if you ever look at the manuals, they're the most explicit, hilarious, but informative manuals that they are. So anyways, so there's one of those that there's a Reactor like emulation of it that I have heard the original, and then I've used that, and like, I can't really tell a difference. So it's like, analog to me is kind of like a state of mind where it's like just adding in those fluctuations, because that's really what people like with analog, is that it's not just this tone, it's got that kind of bend, but it's like, if you just apply that bend to everything, then it's like, you're not just limited by that.
Yeah, that was like the inconsistencies of like analog. It's just like
exactly.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, what about, have you ever played with Portal? Speaking of VSTs.
Oh, so I think I have it. Yeah,
I've been having
don't
a lot
use
of fun. I've been having fun with that lately. It's just like taking any sound, like a good static 4-bar sound of a note, right? And then just running it through Portal and just like playing with the modulation window on there. It's really fun.
Yeah, I find it to be a great tool if I'm like having like a real like creative rut where it's like I'm just not making anything, and then it's like, even just like taking like, I'll take like a break or something and then just throw it into one of these VSTs, and just like you get some crazy sound, and you chop up a little bit, and then you're like, all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's incredibly dope, and you have a million ideas. So shout out Portal.
Well, what about like Ableton stock stuff? Do you have any like go-tos that you really love?
Absolutely. So I mean, you can't go wrong with Amp. Right, soft tube amp. That's just you throw that on dual mode. You throw a little OTT before that. You maybe throw a saturator after that, and boom, you got like a Noer The Boy bass, pretty much. But like, so I would say amp, OTT. I'm doing compression on everything. It's funny, I was using it for so many years before I even knew like what was really going on. I think the first person I saw using it was Saruda. I was like at his house, and he was throwing OTT like on the master or something, and I'm like, what? And he's like, dude, just watch this. And okay, so that's normally you shouldn't do that, but I'm also a fan of like breaking the rules sometimes. And some of my favorite songs have been like, I throw OTT and then trash and then a stereo effect and then like a mono utility on like a 4-bar section of a song, and like you just get this crazy like I don't know. I'm all So anyways, OTT is great. Max for Live. I mean, Granulator 2.
I love the Granulator 2.
I mean that, in conjunction with, if you get like a cool like 20-minute, modular recording or something, just throwing that in there and like setting some like quarter notes at some different octaves. And then the thing that really makes it Noer The Boy are like the LFOs. So like all of the like LFO tools. Like I'm just a huge fan of like, I guess I'm I like to tell people I'm lazy, but then I'm like, oh, but I spend so much time in Ableton. That's not really laziness. But like, as
Yeah.
far as modulation goes, like I could draw it in by hand, but like,
Hmm.
you set those like smooth random LFOs and you like do a chain of like 6 of them going to something and each other. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like, and you have a couple of them that are like synced and you have a bunch of them that are unsynced and you throw that
Hmm.
on some parameter and like, I call it going fishing, where it's like I will create like a rack of this of just I think Lil Snake's another person that does an amazing job at this with like those
Oh, okay.
generative like random LFOs.
Yeah, I can
And
hear
it's like
that.
then it's like we listen and like whereas I used to like sample, you might like sample like another recording or something. I'm just listening for my generation and then you'll hear like a little good bit and then you're like, okay, chop that, throw that
Yeah.
in granular or whatever, or
Yeah.
turn into a wavetable and face plan or whatever, like
Mhm.
there's so many
Yeah.
kind of options there. So I would say those are probably my biggest, stock tools. But I'm also like, whenever I find myself, in a rut, there's so many of those stock, effects that it's like we just don't use for one reason or another. Either, we didn't
Yeah.
learn it when we started out, or like, we just liked how this one looked more or something. So I'm always going through the list and just like trying to, integrate ones that I don't give as much love. Cause I know they're all, with the right combination,
Yeah.
you can make anything.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, I love your approach and like the way you're describing all those things because for a while I went through like a phase where I was like afraid to get my hands dirty and to mess stuff up. Like
Okay.
I got really precious about like my mixes. And I was like,
Okay.
well, I don't want to add too much distortion because, whatever. And like I really appreciate bass music because you kind of have to get your hands dirty in the music production. You just have to mess with stuff and just
Mm-hmm.
create the craziest possible sound and run something through like 4 amps or like do parallel processing like 4 times or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Resample
like
it and start over. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. No, because like I know like all of the the producers that I've had a chance to sit down with in like the studio and stuff. I've seen that where it's
Mm-hmm.
like you just abuse those simple kind of effects where you're like, what if I throw 3 OTTs in a row, or what if I have like
Yeah.
6 vocoders in a row, like to create like
Yeah.
these crazy kind of effects, and you can really do anything. And I think for me, like I'm so much of like an overthinker in real life. Like I will just, I will just think and ruminate about stuff. But it's funny, music is this place where it's like I'm always trying to enter that like flow state of like just
Yeah.
if it's dirty, it's good. For me, it's just like the end result. Like I don't even, I'm mixing as I go. So like I don't do like long mix down sessions. I just kind of like get to the end of a track. I play it on my speakers. I play it on my headphones. I play it in my car. Maybe I play it at, a club if I'm playing, a show that week or whatever.
Yeah.
And then I just like decide like, all right, that's good. Like it can always be better. There's
Yeah.
always going to be like, I hear stuff in songs, from several years ago where I'm just like, why didn't I, like I hear these glaring errors, but like all of those those faults and those like mistakes and those like errors are what makes like the music human. And
Yeah.
electronic music is so computer based already that it's
Yeah.
really those every artist that that I love that has like their signature sound uses the tools incorrectly but like in a different way. And I
Yeah.
think that's so yeah, that's so important. So I'm glad that you're fine getting your hands a little dirty now,
Oh, for
because
sure. Yeah, definitely. 100, you
it's
got to. Yeah.
yeah.
I was talking to Jonathan Stein. I don't know if you know who that is, but
Oh yeah.
he did a collab with Mr. Carmack. And he was like, dude, I've never in my life been in the studio with somebody who resampled something so many times.
Oh, that's amazing.
He's like literally I just watched him for like 20 minutes just destroy a sound, and then he resampled it and destroyed it like 15 more times. And I was
Nope.
just sitting there, and then by the end of it he's like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life, and he like fell in love with it
Oh.
after 20 minutes of
Oh.
just smashing it.
Oh, I love to hear. I mean,
Yeah.
sound is like so much more malleable than I think people give it credit for. Where like,
Yeah.
I think a lot of times you think about like processes where it's like, oh, I add so much, and then you get to the sound where it's like a point where it's like just bleh, it's like flat, and there's
Yeah.
there's nowhere you can go with it. But I always find that like with the combination of like, so that's where I'm using like reverbs. Oh, Valhalla Vintage Verb. I got to give a shout out to Vintage
Shout
Verb.
out.
I'm using that
Yes.
all the time on
Same.
every track. Just the
Same.
default setting is fire.
It's beautiful.
But yeah. So using a combination, throwing some reverb in there, some delays. I
Yeah.
always do with like low delay time, high feedback type stuff. So I always
Yeah.
find that it's like you can kind of massage and kind of sculpt the sound where it's like it gets to that point, and then it's like I will just like blend and blur that out a little bit more and like bring it back. And yeah, I could spend hours on a sound where it's like I keep morphing it into something else. Where it's like, it's not like one's necessarily better than the other, but I'm just like amazed where it's like, how did this, sometimes
Yeah.
it's like I'll turn like a kick into like a crazy lead all of a sudden, this like rhythmic lead, and it's like how did this happen? But it's like
Yeah.
with all these simple tools, we can morph
Totally.
anything.
Yeah, Ableton has so many good simple tools that like I still feel like I overlook sometimes. Like DS Kick, for example. I don't know if you
I
ever
guess
played
I've
with
never
DS
used
Kick.
that. No.
Oh, bro, you should
Oh.
definitely. DS Kick is really fun because it's like the most simple kick generator you could possibly find. It's literally like 3 knobs. Yeah, DS Kick. I think it came out with Live 10. Live 10 is when it came out.
Oh, so it's been around for a minute.
Oh
Okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I'll definitely try it. What other kind of like go-to
It's really
Ableton
easy.
effects do you like?
Yeah, I mean the whole drum synth series. There's a DS Kick, snare. It's just like drum synth, but you can dial it into key really fast and then to shape the envelopes. So it's like you always know the pitch is like locked in. It gives you a readout. It tells you what note, what pitch you're in.
Fire.
Hybrid reverb is really cool. You're talking about Valhalla. I've been falling in love more and more with hybrid reverb in Live
That was
11.
new on 11, right?
Yeah. Are you on 11 or are you on 10?
So I'm on 11 and 10. I feel like I
Okay.
have the 11 beta, and it just like sometimes, actually it's been a lot stabler lately, but I went through a period where it was like not, playing friendly with my computer. So I sometimes open 10 reflexively, but I've messed around with hybrid reverb just a little bit, but because there's that, and is there like the spectral reverb too? Or?
Yeah, spectral, the spectral blur is really cool. There's also spectral resonator is like my jam though. If you put that on a kick drum, if you put spectral resonator on a kick drum and then you can lock it into the note. If you go to the frequency knob, you can change it so it tells you what note, and then you just put that in the root note of the song. And then you can stretch it, and you can get like you can turn a kick drum or any sound into like a synth.
Yeah. I'll raise you a step further in that too. So like when I was talking about convolver, if you do that you throw just a convolver in there, cranking that feedback, playing around with the different slices and different sounds on a kick. Oh, I've been having so much fun just throwing that on drums. Yeah, you can. People, I think they treat their drums a little too dry sometimes, where it's like, obviously, maybe your main kick, I'm going to have that be nice and mono and clean, but like, I don't know. It's that bending and breaking the rules that's so fun. And yeah, if you just take your like drum group, like sometimes I'll have an entire drum group in my track, and then I will just start stacking effects on the group and just record that, and then maybe sidechain that sound with the original drums. So then you have like all of a sudden this like crazy, textured mess.
Yeah. There's no rules really. There's some rules, but mostly not. I would say that drum bus is probably my number one favorite thing. The Ableton Live's drum bus. It's like an instant happy button. You just turn it on and everything just sounds thick and juicy. I've
enjoyed that because you can just add so much crunch. You can add like a sub right away. Like it's just
oh, for sure. Yeah, make 808s with drum bus. That's a happy day. That's a fun time. But yeah, man. So as far as like the live show setup, we could probably sit here and talk about studio stuff for the next 4 hours, and I'm down for it another time. How's the Patreon going? I saw that you have a Patreon and teaching through that and uploading video tutorials and stuff.
Yeah. So that's been really nice. I've done it since I think like fall or like the end of summer of 2018. I started doing that, and I'm very thankful that I was doing that like long before like the pandemic. It's like when other people had their shows canceled, I was just like, well, I got my lessons I'm doing on Zoom. Like,
dude, that's huge.
I'm doing, so it's been a great resource, and I'm also like a hermit, so it's like nice to be able to do my stuff. But it's it's been this nice thing where it's like I don't really put too much pressure on it. I just I make sample packs, I make little presets for people, I make videos just showing my process of what I'm doing, and it's been just a great way. I've realized how much I love just teaching, because like I feel like well you're a teacher as as well, and so the joy of like I'm learning so much when I'm teaching. Like it's just it's crazy, and it's just been nice to like I've realized that like so you're remarking on like my sound design and stuff. And I feel like I'm definitely like a producer's producer in terms of like, it's like most of my hardcore fans like make music as well. That's
That's
kind of
cool.
like the default thing. So it's been nice to meet like so many of my like longtime supporters and be able to like help them and push them on their journey. And so it's just been this just really just this great process where it's like, as much as I love playing shows and I love making music, there's nothing more that I love than just showing these building blocks and like demystifying the process and being like, all right, so
Yeah.
here are the tools, now go. And what you make is, that's up to you. That's the fun part. But like,
Yeah.
so yeah, the Patreon's been good. Trying to, I think this year is the year I think level it up a little bit, just with some more like regularity and just more. I feel like I know a lot of creatives can be kind of disorganized sometimes, where
Oh,
it's
I
like
am.
I just
Yeah, for sure. I get that right. Yeah.
like you give me the structure and I'll bang it out.
Yeah.
I'll get all the stuff done. But like, sometimes myself like getting that motivation by like, okay, this week we're doing this day we're doing this can sometimes be tough. But
Yeah.
as humans, we're constantly evolving and growing, and that's been my biggest thing, is just like, let's get that organization. The
Yeah.
sound design's down. We got the songs. Yeah, I can make a song with my eyes closed. Now let's worry about the other
Let's worry
stuff.
about the
So
calendar. Yeah. I
yeah,
know that.
exactly.
Thank God for coffee. Really. It's like
Mm.
I'd be a hot mess without it.
Gotta have that brain juice.
Yeah, you really do. Yeah, Patreon is definitely, I'm sure they've been doing great in the last 2 years. I know a lot of people, creatives, have started one since the pandemic,
Mhm.
but that's great that you already had it set up. Probably saved you a lot of stress and headache, like getting that going in the last 2 years.
Oh, exactly. And I think honestly, in my opinion, it's such a healthy way of like being supported. Like, we look back and like, because I'm not someone who's getting like, a million streams on songs. Like I have, I'm kind of in this niche, bass music kind of world where it's like I'm not, getting like a ton of plays, but like Patreon's just this great way where it's, I have these longtime supporters that just want to see me do music and they want to see me make more. And it's
Yeah.
such a great, it's such a great relationship there. So I'm just so thankful for it. It's just an absolute blessing. Do you have a Patreon?
I started one and I used it for about 3 weeks, and then
Okay.
and then I got distracted and I stopped using it. Yeah, so that was my
I
story.
feel you. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much it. No, but I actually built out my Ableton training and community through Wix. It's like
Okay.
a website builder.
Gotcha.
I was on WordPress, but it got hacked, and I just was tired of the Russians hacking my website. And WordPress
Yeah.
is just not what it used to be, in my opinion. So I moved to Wix, but yeah, I like it, and it's been fun to teach. And like you were saying, teaching is really like just a good outlet for like people like us. I know for myself that I learn more by teaching, because people
Hmm.
will ask me a question. I'm like, I never thought of thinking of it in that way to explain it, so I have to like reevaluate, like, oh, like what does this really mean, or how do I really use this in other contexts like that is relevant to
Oh,
this person.
exactly. I mean, the amount of times I'll be doing, because like a lot of my lessons, because I've realized I enjoy the more like every lesson's kind of different. It's usually we'll just start with some kind of sound design and we just kind of meander around and questions pop up and we just like explore topics kind of that way.
Yeah.
And anyways, there's so many times where it's like I'll be making a patch and then all of a sudden like something clicks that I've been spending a week on this sound, and then all of a sudden it all comes together and like the students like witnessing it in the moment. I'm just like, yo, okay, I'm gonna give you this patch, but I'm just letting you know I'm using this in my in my next song
Yeah.
and stuff. So it's been such a great like genesis for like
Yeah.
just ideas and
Totally.
thoughts. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. No, I've definitely started projects teaching, and I was like, I'm going to keep this in the archives because I'm going to use this later for sure.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
right to be a little selfish there, just a
You,
little for
yeah,
me.
it's fine. Everybody wins, really. That's how I see it. Yeah. So I saw you have some shows coming up quite a bit. And what does your setup typically look like? Are you just using CDJs or?
Yeah, so at the time, like right now, it's just kind of CDJs because it's like I don't have to bring a computer. I just got my flash drives. I plug in. Like half the time, I don't even have like headphones. I'm just like I just plug it in, and I'm like I got my stuff. I don't
Nice.
have to worry. That being said, I want to get into like, so I've been starting to like get more into like visual design and
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah, I saw that in your bio, and I've seen some stuff on Instagram you post, like you're really into the video component. Do you do much work with syncing up your visuals with your live stuff, your music?
yeah. So the last several months I've been doing that where I just, if I can crank out a little like, 1 minute kind of like looping video or something, I'll do it and like
Yeah.
export it out. And for so long I was like, I guess I just like I undervalued my own abilities because I'm such a video editor where it's like, I'm not as much as like I've tried to get into Blender and like, that kind of like worlds. And like I've just started learning After Effects, but I'm still a
Oh,
little kind of,
cool.
confused by all of that. But I've realized that like just within my skills of like manipulating video and stuff and like and using like several different like programs, like I make a lot of like images before I like kind of animate them in like just Apple's PowerPoint. So I'll just like start like
Really?
collaging stuff. Yeah, and it's funny when I like explained it at first, I felt like kind of embarrassed to share it because I was like, I don't know, this seems like I'm using these like kind of rudimentary, like simple programs to like do different stuff. But
Yeah, it
then
doesn't
I
matter.
started like having them, play at my shows and like, people were just like, whoa, this is, it looks so crazy. And it was just complimenting my music because, oh, shocker, it's me and I'm creating it. So of course it's going to be related to my music.
Yeah,
So yeah, so my whole goal this year is it's like if I can have all of my visual content just be my, generative work. And then if I can like,
that's
I
cool.
think I'm definitely going to get into the like live VJing because it's like
Do it.
we have this stuff
Yes.
where it's like, you can sync up the visuals, but for me, I'm like, I want to like mash it as we go because it's just performing. And I think
Yeah,
the reason why I didn't get as much into the live music production and or the live music performance side, I was doing the CDJs, was just because I've had so much like performance anxiety my whole life where it's like
mm,
that idea of like no matter if I practiced, like I'd be up there and I'm like, okay, everyone's looking at me. And for some reason, I would find a way to mess up. And so, electronic production is such a great way where it's like I can do all of that work, beforehand. And then it's like I
yeah,
have all these songs. I am presenting these songs.
yeah.
G Jones once said my songs are like a 3-minute mixtape. He's like, each one of your songs is like there's so much going on. So it's like I don't have to do a ton of crazy DJing. It's more presenting different, layers
Sure,
of the
sure.
songs. But so that I'm pretty comfortable with, and I don't think anyone is came to one of my shows and been like, wow, that was boring. Noer The Boy's music was really, they're always just like, it's so crazy. So like I think I'm
Yeah,
good there, but it's that visual side where I'm like,
sure,
that I want, I was
sure.
just talking to Zeke Beats not too long ago, and he just
Oh,
got
cool.
a new I think it's a new Serato turntable setup that allows him to scratch his visuals, so he can like
Oh,
perform his visuals. And he is like a DMC world champion DJ in addition to like a producer. Like,
yeah, he's
um,
badass.
he's bad, and he was like a nationally ranked like badminton player when he was like
Really?
in his late. Yeah, he was like the seventh
That's
best in
funny.
like Australia and New Zealand and
Wow.
like one other island. It's crazy. Anyways, he's an awesome another Portland guy. He's in
There you
Portland.
go. Shout out Portland.
Shout out Portland. Yeah, but anyways, he was just telling me about like, yo, I'm gonna be able to start like scratching my visuals, and I was just like, that is like the coolest thing because like I'm a big like I like my music. It's like I have my music and it's done and I created it, but like the visuals, I'm like that can always be changing and morphing. So that's kind of the tip I'm on. Yeah,
Yeah.
the shows I'm playing coming up, I think I'm really pushing for like if I can have almost all of the visuals just be my creation. That's the goal.
Yeah. Visuals are so important though. Just to, like add to what you were saying is like,
Mm-hmm.
if you it's amazing how powerful it is to go and see like electronic music show with like no video. And yeah, you can complement it with some really great lights, but unless you have your own lighting guy or unless he knows your own music ahead of time, video is a whole different artwork in itself. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's good that you're getting deeper into that. It adds a whole nother element and energy by far. Like if that's available for a stage to have that video wall. And
Oh,
like
absolutely.
I have you ever played with Resolume? I know I've mentioned that on the podcast a few times.
Yeah, so I think so. My last release for DJ Shell label that I did, my album Mechanism, it was like 2017. I did a couple, or I did like a few 100% original like AV shows where it's like I had like all the music was like it's the only time I've done like all the songs were mine. And then I collaborated with some visual designers to create like an entire, hour of like, different clips and stuff. And so I used Resolume to like, trigger that kind of show. And it was really cool, but it was also like, at the time it was just a lot of work, and it was like I was really diving into synthesis, and I was like, this is a lot. But yeah, as far as like, performing with the visuals and just all the effects that you can layer on and like syncing to the tempos. Yeah, Resolume's fire. Actually, now that you mentioned that, now that I have a more powerful computer, I got to get back on that because
man, Resolume's great. I split a license with my buddy. Probably shouldn't say that on the podcast, but but I love it, man. I love Resolume, and I've only gone so deep with it. But I've seen some people do some wild stuff, syncing up their CDJ with a GoPro, and they'll like put it on the side. And so like if you set up some transport controls, I don't know exactly how to do it because I haven't tried it with the CDJ, but I know it's possible.
Yeah.
You could run some like synced up effects or like trigger different, what's it called? Not scenes, but you could trigger different layers in Resolume with like and have it sync up to the tempo. So the BPM's locked in between, say, record box or your CDJ with Resolume.
Yeah,
that'd be kind of cool. And then you also have like a GoPro, so you can do effects on top of you dancing and whatever. People love that shit.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Just that like immersive, live performance where it's like stuff. Everyone always loves when you're like, creating kind of stuff on the spot. And so I really love that idea. That's
fun, man.
I'm gonna follow up on that for sure.
Well, I mean, I've seen some of the visual stuff you've come up with. It definitely matches like your music and your vibe. And so I'm glad to hear that you're going to be doing more of that. I'm excited to see it. So,
oh yeah. I mean, creativity knows like no limits, where it's like, music is just like a small subsect. Like, it's like, I love to write. I love to paint. I love to, know, so it's like, I feel like it's like never limit your kind of creative output. So now it's just like, let's explore more in this, because combining audio and visual is, as you know, just.
Yeah. And for people listening who are like, I'm still trying to figure out music, like just find somebody who's maybe already there with the video and just become friends and buy them beer or coffee and
collaboration. Yeah. Because we all have so many different skills, and it's amazing when you band together a few people.
Totally.
You can accomplish really anything.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have like a team or a small group of people that like have really helped like leverage your career and where you're at right now?
So I've kind of gone in and out of that. I've had like a number of agents over the years, and I just never quite felt like I had like the team. But last year I got approached by Eclectic Imprints. They're like a new like they throw like a festival, Vibey Desert out in the Mojave Desert, and they starting to do more events, and they have like a small management roster. And so I met like kind of the right guy, where it's like, I have like the priority, and we kind of have the plan. So it's like in this last year, because I've been in Ableton like every day for like coming up on like 9 years now, like right about. So like,
that's awesome.
A chunk of time. And now I'm like, okay, I've really spent all the time on that, but like, I need that kind of team. And, it's like, it's hard. You can't really just do it by yourself. You got to have that kind of help. So lately, just like with like the management help, and just like you said, like other friends that are like really into visuals. So I have, several friends that I can just ask questions about, whether it's a program or just like, do you want to work on something together? Here, I got these I'll send you these songs and, make something. So, no, definitely assembling that team, and really excited for, I always feel like every year I'm excited for what this year has to come, but like, I really feel that more than ever, where it's just like,
that's great, man.
Maybe it's the fact that we're kind of, we're not like out of the pandemic, but it's like we're getting a little bit, back to kind of where we were. So now it's like, okay, I'm gonna hit play. Let's.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, everybody's getting their boosters now, and hopefully going back to somewhat normal. Dude, that's great, man. Sure. Well, I'm glad that you feel like you've got some hella exciting stuff coming up. I'm anxious and excited to see it and hear it.
Yeah. It's funny that you were mentioning. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I didn't.
That was it. The end.
When you were talking about that when bass music, when you first kind of started getting into bass music, it was a lot more dubstep, and now it's kind of like this different kind of sound. It's funny because I can't tell you how much fun I'm having now, like writing. Like in my head, it's like rhythm dubstep. Like I'm making like dubstep, and I have like this house project. Well, it's just going to be Noer The Boy, but it's like a bunch of house music that I've made that I've loved. And I don't know, I've found it to be almost like that's like the next like experimenting and exploring for me is like, okay, let's go into this kind of like what people consider to be this very established structure and then just, do something different. So anyways, yeah, got a lot of songs, a lot of singles, EPs
That's cool,
this
man.
year. Always staying busy on that.
Good. Glad to hear that. Yeah, I think like music should always kind of be evolving, right? Like I would be so bored if I was making the same sounding music like for like 2 or 3 years in a row. For me personally, I would get bored.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I understand that like, people do that and, then they'll get like a career because, promoters like that kind of consistency and they sound, but then I've known countless numbers of them that have just got burnt out and like quit because they're just like, this isn't fun anymore. And for me, it's like the music, I would do music if no one was listening to it, so like I would make music. So it's like, it's gotta be, that's like the reason why I'm making it at the core. So it's like, I'm always going to be, searching for that next sound, that next like genre, that next tempo, just, because you never know what you can accomplish if you kind of shift your focus, ever so slightly to a new kind of realm.
It's true. And collaborations, you've done a lot of collabs, it seems like, so that's
huge. I've done collabs. I got to get more on that. I feel like I'm such a control freak that it's like sometimes that like the process of working with someone else can sometimes be where it's like, well, now I just made this idea, and then you do more work and you're like, well, this is kind of my song now. Oh, yeah. But no, the power of teamwork that's so important. Yeah,
totally.
Got some cool collabs in the works.
Some little things.
Some little things.
Little thingies. Right on, dude. Love that. Yeah. I saw that you're playing Soulfest later with a bunch of people that have been on this podcast, like Mr. Bill, Ahi, bunch of other homies. Yuju, I don't know if you know him. I taught him.
I played for him in it was at Healer in Indianapolis. It was
no way. I missed.
You remember
that.
It was because it was like the fucking
the Healer's wild, man. It's so that used to be anybody listening, it was an insurance office that some dude who had money and loved art just bought it after it was vacant, and then he like gave a bunch of these cubicles to artists and just said, hey, come on in and set up like these weird displays. There's like baby dolls like holding daggers, and then you'll walk into another like cubicle and it's like an old Atari arcade game setup where you can just play like games and Duck Hunter, and then you'll walk into another one and it's like this creepy wedding environment. It's super weird. Like if you were tripping and you went in there, you would have the craziest experience.
Well, so that was
it's a music venue.
Yeah, exactly. It was two of the artists for that went to college with like Alex, or who runs Meow Wolf.
Oh, Meow Wolf. I don't know who runs Meow Wolf.
The cats that do Meow Wolf, they went to college at the same time, and they were in that same kind of like interactive space kind of realm. So it was like very much kind of like, it was like a mini Meow Wolf type kind of vibe. But no, that was a great time in Indianapolis. So weird walking into that office and just like,
Vince,
what is going on here?
Vince Cattlebeck. He was like the CEO and co-founder of Meow Wolf.
Okay. So it was they're just
Meow Wolf's really dope. Yeah, they have like a couple locations. There's one in
Mexico,
Denver,
Las Vegas, Denver now. Yeah.
There's a new one in Denver. Grizz just played there not too long ago, and a bunch of artists, and they're having some really cool shows there now. So I'm definitely gonna hit that up when I move.
Oh, absolutely. Experience that.
I've heard good things.
Oh, Denver's gonna be fun. That's
there's another there's like a smaller Meow Wolf called Otherworld. Have you ever heard of Otherworld? That's another one.
Where's that located?
One in Columbus, Ohio, and they just built a brand new music venue. It's supposed to be pretty nice. So that's another one. I went to that. That was crazy. You're like swinging in this giant like spider web, and like there's like all these random holes in the wall, and you can crawl into like you just like,
I love that.
It's wild, man.
If I could only play at venues like that, that would be the dream.
That's
what we got to get more of.
That's the real American dream. Yeah, let's
more interactive venues. Let's go.
Exactly. Yeah. Although I do like a small like dive bar every once in a while. So just every once in a while.
Yeah. Moderation. Gotta have it.
Yeah, exactly, man. Well, any other exciting new projects you have coming up that come to mind?
Um, right now it's a lot of formulating. Like I have, tracks done, and I've done a lot of like, EPs and albums in the past, which are great and I love, but like so much of, the scene is like, all right, what track did you put out this week or, this month, for better or worse. But so I've kind of, accepted that, like, all right, I want to, get to that next level. I want to keep, growing and building. And so, yeah, this year is just, yeah, trying to find homes for all of like these singles and,
Yeah.
short kind of EPs, and just trying to, it's like if you're within this, dark kind of bass world, there's a decent chance that you maybe heard one of my songs, but it's like if you're outside of there, I'm just like, Noer the what? Like who, what, who's this and stuff. So it's all about just breaking through to that next level. So yeah,
Yeah.
just trying to write a bunch of stuff. And then that's also freeing because I'm so much of a concept artist. Not to, I know we're getting kind of long here on the call, but
No,
I'm
you're
such a
cool.
concept artist as far as just like all of my releases have to kind of fit to this kind of like story and stuff. But when I'm
Yeah.
doing that, that also can take a long time as far as like kind of the incubation process and getting that going. And whereas making a song where it's like, I just made the song, now let's get it out there,
Yeah.
can be kind of freeing because each of those songs can be a little bit of like a different story. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm enough further far enough in my journey that it's like I have this world, I have this aesthetic, this sound that I'm going for. So whether I make house or I make dubstep or I make crazy 50 BPM
Yeah.
evil bass music, it's all Noer the Boy.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
just populating that world this year.
Yeah. You were talking about like almost like having a narrative or whatever behind the music. I think that's helpful because it's like it's one thing just to like here's a piece of artwork that I'm slapping on a song and throwing it out, but like
Mm-hmm.
having something a little more to present, like whether it's your visual art or like having some kind of narrative or story behind the music of some sort. Like I feel
Oh,
like help
exactly.
definitely attracts like a larger audience or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Well, it's just more meaning. I think as
yeah,
humans, we're just like searching for meaning. So giving something this kind of this value is just gonna make it a little more interesting. And that being said, I
yeah.
love albums that are just like, here's a bunch of
Sure. Yeah.
this order of tracks. But like for
Totally.
me, it's just that, yeah, like that meaning, that cohesion underneath you. You're a lot, you find these new kind of pathways that maybe you hadn't found before. And the great thing about adding a story to the music is like the story doesn't even have to make sense to anyone else, really. It's
Yeah.
like, because I'm such a fan of, yeah, like the instrumental kind of abstract music. And so it's
Same.
like
Me
you
too.
can listen to it and you're going to have probably a completely different takeaway maybe than I have, or maybe it'll actually be on a similar wavelength but slightly different. And I love that kind of like subjectiveness of like,
Yeah.
I make this, and like I maybe it's like if you look at like the titles and you do some Wikipedia searches, maybe you can start like combining stuff together where like, oh, okay, like I see where this could kind of going. But I also like to keep it kind of cryptic where it's like it's just for you to figure out, and there's
Right.
no right way, because bringing it all back, like there's no right way to music, to approach
Yeah.
art in general and stuff. So there's like no
Yeah.
right way to interpret this abstract story with like no words. So
Totally.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's
I agree. I
so
totally
fun.
agree. I think like that's one reason I love instrumental music because like words will define something pretty quick with a song, but like you could think of it however you want to think of it in whatever way it makes you feel. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I love electronic like dance music without like tons of words and stuff. Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I feel like Ganja White Knight's a good example of that because all of like a lot of their tracks have like the wobble master, like with the visual art, like their visual art's
Yeah.
crazy, dude. Like where they have like some intense animations. I'm sure they spend a ton, or like their best friend is like working for Pixar or
Right.
something. Yeah, because that's their prime example of somebody who's doing that at another level in my mind. But
Yeah, love it.
well, dude, I know we're getting tight on time and like thanks for hanging out. Like really appreciate you and what you're doing. Your music's dope, your sound design's dope. And yeah, hope to connect maybe sometime if I'm in the Portland hood.
Oh, absolutely. If you're in this neck of the woods, hit me up. It was
Yeah,
an
man.
absolute pleasure talking with you. Like you said, it's like I could nerd out about like,
Oh
production
yeah.
and sound design for hours and hours and hours.
All day.
This is also, if you're listening to this and you see me at a show and you want to nerd out about sound design, I know some producers, they get kind of prickly about it where they're like, I don't want to talk about this. Like I'm at a club. Come up and talk to me and nerd out because I am just a nerd about sound design. And
Love it.
there's nothing I love more than yeah, gaining some new insight, sharing some knowledge. So
Well, and that says a lot of good things about you too, like not being pretentious. And it's like, it's all secret. Like, being able to share with other people shows a lot about you. So that's cool.
I just want to hear like more cool music. And if I share these tools and you're allowed, you're making more cool music that I'm not making as a music consumer, maybe that's a bit of a selfish reason there where it's like, I just want to hear more cool stuff and like, advance the culture. So
totally, man. Yeah. And as a teacher, like there's no better feeling when your students spread their wings and fly like little birds and they make something great, or they end up playing a huge show and you're like, hell yeah.
It's great. A very proud moment.
It Absolutely. Is. It's like proud dad moment. Yeah. Cool, man. Well, for people who want to follow you, who aren't already following you, where's the best place to connect with you online?
I would say probably like Twitter or Instagram, or like, just finding like my email in any of my bios and like shoot me a message. Like, I'm a human. I see my message. It might take a little bit to, to get back to you, but so much of, life is just about that, connecting with others. And I love saying what up. So yeah.
Right on, man. Well, everybody listening, as usual, check out the links in the show notes. I'll include it for Noer The Boy. And yeah, man, dude, it's good hanging with you. I'll be closer to you when I'm in Denver. So if you're ever in that hood, hit me up.
Will do. We'll be in touch, my dude.
Yeah, for sure, man. Huge thanks to Noah for hanging out on the podcast. Make sure you give him a follow, like, subscribe. Check out all the links in the show notes for more info. Want to give you a quick heads up, if you don't own the latest version of Ableton Live, I'd be happy to hook you up with a special deal and a discount. You can go to liveproducersonline.com/buyableton. Also, if you want to hang out with me and others in the Discord server that I started, learn some new tips, new tricks, other things, then hang out there. I'd love to meet you. Go to liveproducersonline.com/discord. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Have an amazing week/weekend, and I will see you in the next episode, usually releasing every Tuesday. So yeah, stay tuned.